Hey guys, Dark Humility here. You can always catch me streaming on www.twitch.tv/darkhumility, usually 7 days a week. Today, we just made a brand new Barbarian. He's still level 86, but he is a Goldfind Whirlwind Barbarian, specifically designed to destroy Trav. What I'm going to go over here is his stats, skills, and gear, and possible choices. And then, of course, we're going to demo a Trav run so you guys can see what he is capable of. He is a beast for sure. We are using an Act 5 Mercenary for that Might Aura that he sometimes procs in Trav, not very reliably. I mean, it's kind of hard to get the Mercenaries to proc their base auras in Trav because it's such a small amount of time farming. But also so you can get a damage and an AR aura on him, so we use Beast. Beast is pretty sick. Mine didn't roll insane, but that's okay. I would say there's a couple of different approaches to things you can do. I would not use Pride, though. I would not use a lot of things because they give cold damage. So remember, on a Trav Barb, you don't want any kind of cold damage at all. Otherwise, when you try to Hork using your item find skill, the council members will explode in shards of ice, which will not leave bodies. When they don't have a body, there's nothing to use item find on, and you lower the efficiency of your barb by a lot. So things like Pride that freeze targets, Doom that freeze targets, which you can use on Act 2 Mercenaries, are probably not a good idea on this build. So there are a few other things that might be decent, but Beast is pretty solid. It doesn't freeze the enemies, and it gives you damage and AR, which is very important on Whirlwind. We also have attack speed and life leech. You definitely need some source of life leech on him, otherwise when he is attacking the council members, he will not survive. Of course, if he's not attacking him at all, he won't survive, but you want to make sure he's attacking him, and if he has life leech, it's going to be very important. Attack speed is nice there as well. Attack speed with more fire res so that he can survive conviction against the council members is not a bad idea, so Laying of Hands is actually a really good choice here. There's other things you can do, though. You can actually put lava gouts on him if you want, which have attack speed and 5% max fire damage. Fire res, which arguably is even better than this, simply because, this gives them more damage against the council members, but lava gouts gives them more survivability because he can have 80 fire res with it. So I would recommend using something like Laying of Hands or lava gouts there. You can also use other things here, but keep in mind you do need life leech, like you could use G-Face and other stuff as well. Fortitude just gives them more damage, gives them res, and even gives them maximum light res, which isn't terrible, and some flat DR. It's really solid armor, and on LOD this armor would be a problem for running Trav, because on LOD it has chilling armor proc, and the chilling armor can cause the council members to freeze and explode in ice shards, thereby not leaving a corpse once again. But on this mod, on PD2, it does not have the chilling armor proc, which means this armor is actually safe for a Trav Barb, which is pretty cool. Gold Wrap. Alright, Gold Wrap, once again, just getting that attack speed up, but also gives him MF and Goldfind, so if he kills monsters, he's actually adding to my Goldfind. It's not a bad idea to add MF and Goldfind corruptions too when you're doing this. You can actually arguably even put a Scolders on him if you want MF and Goldfind corruptions. Just keep in mind you want his res to be stacked for conviction, and you want life leech, and you also want to give him a decent amount of survivability and damage, otherwise he's not going to be killing things anyway. So maybe a good balance between the two, which is what I'm kind of doing here, is probably what you're going for overall. You got a 3% PDR, of course, as well, which helps them survive. Gold Wrap is just really good for Trav in general. I'm not wearing it on myself, but I'll explain why once we get to that point, but it's good on him. Goblin Toes, 23% magic find and damage, and flat DR. Very good stuff. You can also just put Inferno Strides on him, though. There's actually a lot of things you can put here. Mine's doing just fine with this, so I think this is okay. Alright, now to my gear. So let's talk about my gear specifically. So this is an amazing weapon, just a really high damage weapon that procs amp on a Whirlwind Trav Barb is going to be very ideal here. I think Reaper's Toll would also work, but I'm not sure if the cold damage is still on Reaper's Toll. Can anyone in chat actually confirm that? Does Reaper's Toll still have cold damage on it, actually? I just want to make sure I'm not giving false information here. Or did they take the cold damage off of Reaper's Toll? I don't remember. Anyway, a weapon without cold damage that procs is at. It does have cold damage still on PD2. It's still on there. Okay, so in some sense then, Gavel of Pain is one of the best weapons you can like have for like whirlwind Trav farming, because you don't want cold damage once again, because you're gonna freeze the monsters. So Reaper's Toll is amazing because it has more of a chance to proc amp than Gavel does, but Gavel still procs it very often because it procs every time your whirlwind ticks. It has a chance, and that chance is 15%, and it ticks a lot, so it definitely procs a lot. But that being said, it doesn't have cold damage and it procs amp, which is amazing. If you can get an F1, you can be fortunate enough to find an F1 like me and corrupt something good like Deadly Strike, ED, even maybe Crushing Blow is okay, AR, ED, that kind of stuff, you're going to be in a good position for sure. And then of course if you puzzle box it for 4 sockets, you need at least 1 Zod, and the Ohm runes give the most ED. You don't need attack speed for Whirlwind at all, so don't worry about your attack speed. Attack speed's irrelevant in this mod. It's 4 frames per second no matter what weapon you use. It used to be that the weapon was the only thing that affected the Whirlwind speed. Now it doesn't affect it at all. Now nothing affects Whirlwind speed, and it's just pure unadulterated damage that you want, which is pretty cool. Anyway, there's other things you can do here. You can put like Lem runes in it if you want, but your damage is going to be significantly lower, so I recommend Ohm runes. Alright, so Shaft Stop. So we're playing hardcore here. This is my hardcore Whirlwind Trav Barb. So you need physical damage reduction for sure. Trav can roll some really nasty auras. Also, it doesn't hurt to put like res in it. And you really want really high stacked res. You can put Lem runes in something, but you gotta make sure that res is stacked though. I also have a pretty solid amount of life as well, which is not bad. But overall, like, the idea is to get PDR somewhere in res, in Goldfind, and MF where you can get it. Especially on a hardcore version of this build. On a software version, you can definitely you don't really have to worry too much about some of the res problems with like double enchants and conviction and whatnot, because if you die, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. But on this version of the build, you definitely want to make sure you're doing things like that for sure. 5 frames Whirlwind. Yeah, I think they said it was 4 frames, but yeah, I don't, you know. It's a fixed amount of frames, and the weapon speed no longer matters. Cuirass. Alright, so there's a lot of things you can do here. You can use IK Helm, which gives you Goldfind and MF. You can use a lot of things, but I think the key is that you have cannot be frozen. Once again, I need more all res on my build, so that's why I use this, and I had 2 socket corruption on it, and this is also giving me FHR as well, and it's giving me Goldfind because I put Lem runes in it. I was able to afford some more Goldfind on this item, but overall you can use like Crown of Thieves, you can use IK Helm. There's a lot of things you can do here that give you like Goldfind and MF. Just keep in mind though that you definitely want that res stacked. We'll go over the stats and the skills after I go over the gear here, so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. This is Saracen's Chance here. So Saracen's is pretty good. It's really good for physical damage characters since you don't need the attack speed on High Lords. This is actually a very solid choice. You get all res. Once again, I need more res. Gives you damage. That's nice. It's giving me a pretty solid amount of damage. I actually can't see how much though because I can't wear my weapon without it. And I got Goldfind corruption on mine, which is like perfect. Like if you get Goldfind on that, that's like a really good item for this particular kind of farm. On my swap, I kind of have no-brainers here. When you're doing a MF Goldfind Trav Barb, you're going to want Blades of Alibaba. Why? Because when you use Item Find, which you're going to want to use on your swap anyway, you get way more Goldfind. I have like 1,500 on swap and only about 800 not on swap. So these are huge. You would never use these to attack because they simply don't do enough damage, even if you upgrade them. Or even if they're upgrade ethereal, they just don't do enough damage. But, I mean, you might be able with upgraded ethereal ones to use them in Frenzy, but it's still pretty weak. Overall, though, like, this one got an MF corruption, which is pretty sick as well. But if you put Lem runes in there, you get even more Goldfind, and then they have MF on them as well, so you get over 300 MF when you're using item find. Pretty much the things you're going to want to use on swap, sure, to maximize that. You could also use Hodos, though, if you really want to, like, maybe boost your battle orders level, maybe boost your item find level as well. That's another approach, but it does mean you're going to get less gold and have less MF on your swap. Hodos also improve your horking speed because they have FCR. So that is another option. You can use that, but overall you're going to lose out on a lot of stats. Of course, if you have a Goldfind High Lords, I mean, you can still use that. Just make sure all your res is stacked for the most part, because that can definitely kill you. We'll explain that in a second. All right, Chance Guards. So Chance Guards are kind of another no-brainer. You really just want tons of MF and Goldfind wherever you can get it. The MF isn't insanely impressive on this, but I rolled 10% Deadly Strike when I rolled this, so I was like, okay, that's almost exactly what you want on a Whirlwind Goldfind MFer, so it's like, okay, let's get that. 10% plus the 27 on my weapon means we actually have a decent amount of Deadly Strike without putting Deadly Strike anywhere else, so it's pretty solid. Alright, Dwarf Stars. So Dwarf Stars are pretty much staple. I got a Goldfind Corruption on this one. MF corruptions are also nice. You get the Fire Sword, you get the MDR, which is really good for surviving those Hydras. You get the life, and you get Goldfind. So I get even more Goldfind with this one. But yeah, in general, that's really solid ring. And since we're using Whirlwind, I highly recommend you have some source of Mana Leech. I need Mana Leech somewhere. It also helps to have a Mana Leech ring that gives you like AR as well. You're really starving for attack rating on this build, it seems, in some sense. And attack rating is really integral to your leech, your overall survivability, and the ability to do damage. So you definitely need like some combination of these things. You can get a dual leech ring as well, of course. You can get like a Goldfind dual leech ring. This is the best I have at the moment, so this is helping me out with my Mana Leech. That is a string of ears. I might also want to mention I actually upgraded all of these items because I can. It helps with my defense, and since this requires so much strength, I can literally upgrade everything. So make sure to have plenty of Lems and Co's and Towels and Shales and Perfect Diamonds lying around. It's really good stuff. But anyway, with this String of Ears is really nice for Trav, actually. Maybe I'd say it's better than Verdungo's, at least for Trav specifically, because you get Life Leech. I don't have any other source of Life Leech, so that's extremely important to have somewhere. I get in the case of having Crown of Thieves, I could fix that, but then I wouldn't have Canopy Frozen. So being frozen, while it doesn't matter too much while you're whirlwinding, it does matter while you're horking and moving around. So I don't like being frozen. In general, though, like, this gives you your DRs, so my DR is almost 50. It's 45%, so it's pretty huge. It's pretty huge to have all this DR just in general, and of course I get the all attribute corruption. That's a really nice corruption on it as well, just giving us life. It's kind of like I have Dungos in a sense because of the all attribute corruption, but only like 15 vitality instead of 30 to 40. And then of course I get 8 life leech, and then I have 15 MDR, which is also protecting us against the Hydras. And then you could use Verdungos here though if you want other survivability, and of course you can also use Gold Wrap. On softcore, especially if you have a dual leech ring or something, you could definitely use Gold Wrap here and get even more Goldfind and a Magic Find for sure. It's definitely a little bit of a pain point that I have to even use this instead of like Gold Wrap, but that's okay. Inferno Stride. So these boots are kind of perfect in a lot of ways. Like, you could get Goldfind and MF corruptions, but on hardcore I really like this corruption. They made Hydras really powerful this season. You might notice I have a lot of MDR, like magic damage reduction. That flat MDR is really effective against Hydras. And and so is some Fire Sword. And flat Fire Sword's even more effective to some degree, but what also is effective is having a lot of maximum fire resist. I'm getting 80 free fire resist. It's really nice because you don't have to worry about the Hydras destroying you when you're going in and out of whirlwinds and whatnot, and possibly getting one shot when you go in and out of whirlwinds. I lose health very slowly between all this fire res, MDR, and stacked fire res, even if there's conviction. So I'm not really worried about the Hydras killing me, which is definitely pretty huge on a hardcore build. So max fire res is huge. There's only 50% Goldfind too on this, so they're not obviously the best version of these you could possibly have, but honestly I'd recommend something like this on hardcore probably, or at least like getting like maybe like lava gouts or something somewhere else. Maybe another like max fire corruption on the shaft stop, I don't know, something like that. Definitely helps out quite a bit. Yes, it is, Naki. I would say it is. Yes. Hope you're having a good day, man. I did make this new character yesterday. Every Saturday, I'm making a new hardcore character. Next Saturday, we're doing Slamfest, though.
I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken.
It's going to be next Sunday for the new character and Slamfest on Saturday. Alright, so this character right now has a hodgepodge of charms, but let me kind of explain what you're looking for on charms on this character. This character kind of has like every charm imaginable on him, almost. So, in general, you want your AR to be like north of 7,000, at least like maybe 8,000 if possible, so you're mostly hitting all the time, so you're remaining in constant leech status, because that's how you survive. It's very important you can do that. It's also important you do the damage consistently so that you actually kill them quickly. This skill does have some AR issues, especially when you're using this kind of gear for survivability and just for like Goldfind in general. It's what I'm kind of trying to do here is get my FHR to a certain frame. I'm trying to get my all res to a certain frame. I'm also going for some MF. I'm also going for some Goldfind, which is why you have some Goldfind on some of these types of charms. I'm going for some more damage here and there. I'm going for attack rating and damage. And of course, life doesn't hurt on hardcore, of course, because some of those stacked aura situations can get really nasty in Travincal. So overall, I'm kind of doing all the above. And then, of course, I have a decent Geeds fortune, but you can definitely get one with way better Goldfind than this. So he definitely can easily get to like 1,800 Goldfind pretty comfortably, but we don't have all the right charms and all the right gear yet. But you can focus like max damage AR Goldfind charms specifically if you want. You can focus Warcry Goldfind skillers if you're going a Warcry Barb. This is a Whirlwind Barb though, so I would definitely go damage AR Goldfind for the most part, and then fill in any gaps with res, FHR, MF if you feel like your MF is kind of low, and other stuff as well. Of course, we also have an Annihilus charm, we have a Barb Torch, good vitality on it, which is solid, and yeah, because you get 4 life points per vitality point on a Barb, so vitality is very effective on a Barb for sure. And then, of course, you know, AR damage. This gives me a little bit more faster run walk as well, which helps me run to Trav. You can also do some faster run walk. There are a lot of types of charms that really work here. This is another type of charm that's pretty effective because it gives you MF and Goldfind. So you just, I don't know, I'm kind of just using a bunch of things that kind of help me out in this situation, but there really are a lot of options, as you can see. There's plenty of options. The more Goldfind though, the faster, of course, you can buy orbs with your gold. As you can see, what I'm mostly doing with my gold here is I'm buying orbs. And if you use an edge bow, you can actually reduce vendor prices to up to 30% if you have a perfect vendor reduction Geeds. And so you can actually get 30% vendor reduction. You put this on, and then you buy these orbs at the lowest possible cost for map rerolling. You can sell them, you can use them. They're very valuable in general, and they're pretty hard to get because they're very expensive. We've already started doing that here, but we're going to get plenty more tonight. Of course, you can also gamble with the gold, and of course you can craft with the gold. You can gamble, craft bases like amulets and rings. With the gold, you can do whatever you want. Of course, you can sell the gold too. Alright, so that's pretty much like all the gear and kind of what it's used for and all the different types of things you can put in the different slots and what I've done. Remember, this is a Hardcore Whirlwind Trav Barb, so Goldfind MF Trav Barb, so on softcore you definitely can go for some, you don't have to go as hard on the PDR and whatnot. Definitely make sure you can survive getting hits though, because sometimes even though you can leech very quickly, you can take some nasty hits sometimes, and when there's mana burns, sometimes the Whirlwind isn't always consistent. So make sure you don't get caught in those situations. That's another reason why you're going to want at least like somewhere between 6 and 8 mana leech. It's pretty important. Alright, so let's talk about his stats real quick. So I can bow real quick just to show you guys like his full stats on him. So when he has his Might Aura, we actually do 14,000 Whirlwind damage. Let's see if I can get him to proc his Might Aura real quick so that we can actually show his full stats here. This weapon's a pretty insane weapon. You don't need something this insane, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have some kind of really powerful weapon like an Gavel of Pain. Notice that I'm proccing Amp almost all the time, even with that Reaper's Toll, you can see. It's pretty consistent stuff. Alright, so did he proc it yet? Yep, he did. Nice! Alright, so we can show you guys his stats here. Alright. So the amplified damage is negative physical res, and so is the battle cry. We'll go over the skills here in a second though. There's also a lot of options when we're talking about skills, but yeah, we'll talk about some of this stuff. So he's a Trav Barb, so alright. So my AR is about 8,200, so it's really hard to get your AR up, which is one of the reasons why I just have AR life charms and not necessarily all Goldfind charms. It's partially because I haven't like traded for them yet, but it's also partially because they're actually kind of useful. My defense is okay-ish, but I only have 1 point to shout, and I upgraded all my items, so it's like, it's giving me some defense. Some defense is nice, but you shouldn't worry about it too much. Somewhere between like 3,000 and 6,000 though can be pretty good here. I like to have above 8,000 attack rating without using things like Demon Limb that are going to slow you down. I think that's really nice because you're hitting almost all the time, which means you're leeching all the time. That means you're also killing things very quickly. Whirlwind damage, 14,000 damage. Without Amp and without Deadly Strike, without the crit from General Mastery taken into account, that's a ton of damage. With either 4 or 5 frames per second Whirlwind, I believe it's 4, but yeah, it's crazy stuff. Once you start stocking some Ohm runes and an F weapon like that procs Amp, like Gavel of Pain, remember using Reaper's Toll is not a good idea on this weapon. So because on this build, because it has cold damage and it's going to freeze the enemies that you want to use item find on. This is like one of the best in slots you can possibly get. It's pretty sick. Anyway, you can also use like Breath of the Dying. Breath of the Dying also does a ton of damage and it doesn't have cold damage. Breath of the Dying Thunder Maul would also work here and a lot of other things. But you get the idea. You get a ton of damage. Good to go. Life. Life isn't as important as some of these other stats, like the life leech and the DR and everything else, and like just having like full uptime on Amp and the leech, and just having higher AR and whatnot. But you do want to have somewhere between, I'd say, like 2.2 minimum on hardcore, maybe 2.1 when you're doing this, and I would say at least north of 2k life, and somewhere between that and like 2.6. Which you can do if you want to. You can definitely make it even safer. That's okay. I did have to put some extra points into dexterity just to get like above 7,000 AR, but you can definitely fix it with more attack rating on your charms. 243 strength just to wear the Gavel of Pain, and then the rest into vitality. Alright. Alright, so next, I want to go over the res real quick here. So the res, you want that fire res. I would say this fire res is actually too high. It's actually too high, believe it or not. I am using just kind of like a fire res Goldfind. This is just giving me Goldfind basically. But the Conviction in Trav, I believe, will drop your resistance at least 30, if not 35. So it's somewhere kind of in that range. So you'll see these res are over 30 stacked in Hell, or almost over 30 stacked in Hell. That's kind of where you want them in Hardcore, because there's cold and lightning enchanted monsters, and those bolts can destroy you. If you have conviction and you whirlwind over them, you will die before completing the whirlwind. So you want to make sure that you have res that is stacked around 30 plus on cold, lightning, and fire in Trav. All three of those elements. Fire so you don't die to the hydras, and also to the multi-enchant bolts as well with conviction. So you don't want to die to those things. Poison res is irrelevant, but I have poison res corruptions just randomly on my gear, so I wouldn't pay much mind to that. They don't do poison damage in Travincal. And of course we have damage reduction, so 45% DR. That's really good. That's really good. The MDR though, the flat MDR is 27. If you use another Dwarf Star, you can get your flat MDR even higher, and you can actually heal off of the Hydras. I'm not quite healing. I'm taking very little amount of damage from them, so I'm in an okay spot. But that's because I had to sacrifice the Dwarf Star for extra mana leech. But if you have a lot of flat MDR, you can even heal off the Hydras, which is not bad. The percent damage reduction, of course, is preventing me from dying to like really powerful hits from the auras and everything. And since they usually cast amp on you, it's definitely a lot. You definitely want really high DR on hardcore for sure. I would say 40 is like the bare minimum against Trav because they can hit really hard. So somewhere between like 40 and 50 plus even, because they amp you all the time, is not a bad idea. Let's see. So hit recovery. Yeah, hit recovery. We're going to want our hit recovery to be at least 48, I would say. If you get smacked around, especially if they mana leech you, you don't want to be putting hit recovery too hard. At least 48. 48 or 86 FHR is kind of nice. Bare minimum, maybe 27, but you got to be careful with that one. That can definitely get you killed sometimes. Alright, run walk, boots, and some extra faster run walk. Faster run walk is actually not a bad idea to do here. One thing you can actually do is you can go... You're probably not going to get the Vigor on the Act 1 Mercenary to proc immediately. But if you can actually use a Vigor or a Mercenary to run even faster to Trav. And then you can have some more faster run walk on your gear, and you can actually run really fast. It can improve your efficiency a little bit. The only problem with an Act 1 Mercenary is that she dies all the time. Because she doesn't leech effectively, and she's just going to die to the Hydras. Unless you put a lot of like Sword and like max fire res gear, she's going to die to them. So you gotta gear her very specifically to do that. That is an approach. You can also put like Faith on her, and then you can have some source of fanaticism. It does mean though that you have no chance of getting a Might aura on you, but you don't usually need that anyway. So that is a possible approach on this character. I might even try it at some point. Because it sounds like it could definitely be very effective. Attack rating. So yeah, you want a lot of attack rating, and it's really a struggle to get attack rating on this build. So if you need to put extra dex or have attack rating charms, make sure that's pretty high. Deadly Strike. Well, I got some nice, lucky Deadly Strike corruptions, but otherwise you can use High Lords with Goldfind corruption if you can get your res elsewhere. Just note that if I take any of my all res off right now, you can see that I'm not stacked enough for Conviction. I can definitely die to Conviction multi-enchant, so that's not good. Definitely want to make sure your res is plenty stacked. So you gotta get your res somewhere. That's one of the issues here. Life Leech. Make sure you at least have one solid source of Life Leech above 6 and some solid source of Mana Leech above 6. Magic Find. So my base Magic Find isn't very impressive when I kill things, but when I swap for item find, it's 319. You can also see my gold find is almost 1500, which is what it says on the screen, and my gold find on my main hand is almost 800. So you can get way more than that. There's definitely gear improvements that I've talked about here. Softcore makes it even easier, but on hardcore you can definitely get some improvements still, definitely. This stuff is not all at its very best, but anyway. You want to get very high MF and very high gold find as much as possible for the Trav farm as well. Definitely helps you out a ton. And then, of course, one last thing to go over before we actually kill Trav a couple of times so you guys can see kind of how it works. Max Whirlwind, of course. I mean, that's your skill. There's no synergies, so that's okay. Leap is really nice. I like having Leap because I can leap over the balconies and then I can cross into Durance and then come back out of Durance so that the Mercenary is positioned well. Leaping is really good to skip some steps there, and it does seem to save at least a second sometimes in some cases, and it also saves some time when you just want to jump back into the fray and use Whirlwind. So I like having 1 point into that. Let's see here. Oh yeah, so max general mastery. Yeah, this is that's your just damage skill. Since this is a mace, it's not a polearm, you just want to max out general mastery and get way more damage, and you get 30% crit strike on top of the 37% deadly strike I already have. Your attack rating and your damage. You definitely need that attack rating. The damage helps quite a bit. Increased speed, so this is just 1 point. I mean, this is almost a no-brainer. You should have 1 point to increase speed. It definitely makes it to where you're not running super slowly no matter what. Even if you're using a Vigor or a Mercenary or you're not, it's definitely going to make you run faster. Alright, and this of course is getting us to that FHR frame, just having 1 to combat reflexes, which is nice. And then I put 2 points in a natural res just so that my res is a bit better on the cold than the lightning front. But depending on your res situation, you can put 1 point into that or more. Iron Skin, you can put points into here except for one, but more than 1 to improve your DR or your defense. However, you usually don't have the points to spare, and I'll explain why in a second. Alright, and then of course the last tree to go over is the Warcries tree. So I put a lot of points into Find Item. You can get your Find Item percentage even higher than this if you want to invest a few more points in this. I personally can't, but if you get some plus skill corruptions, or you get some or you're using like IK Helm, you can definitely get this to like 53, 54%. You really want this as high as possible, because most of that Goldfind and most of that Magic Find is sitting on your Alibabas. I mean, you can also use like 6 Lem swords here if you don't care about the Magic Find, if you don't want to find items. But it's most of your stuff is sitting on these 2 items. When you're swapping, you use Item Find, and that's what you're going to want to use in general. So in general, like, you really want that to be a high % chance. So you're going to want to put a lot of points into that. That's how you make this build very efficient. Battle Orders. I put 10 points into this. I kind of need the mana. My mana is really low, but I also, could use a bit of buffer health for hardcore. You could put anywhere from 1 to 20 points on this, especially in hardcore. It really is hard to say. You could put other points into like Battle Command, depending on if you're playing hardcore software, and increase your damage more. There's definitely a lot of things you can do here, and they're all valid options. And then Battle Cry, I put also about 10 points into Battle Cry, and since I'm only level 86, I definitely can put more points into these kinds of things at some point. Probably Battle Cry specifically. Now, Battle Cry is pretty huge. When you jump into them, if you use Battle Cry, you reduce their physical res a ton and their defense, which means that you're likely to hit them almost all the time. Once you have about this much AR, and then you reduce their defense with Battle Cry, you hit them pretty much all the time, which is what you want for like perma leech and perma damage. And you also do way more damage to them too when you proc this on them. It's definitely worth it, and putting a lot of points into this can be very, very effective. It improves your efficiency a lot, just in general, and it improves the efficiency and the safety of your character. Alright, so, and then of course 1 point Battle Command just to increase your base damage a little bit. And of course give you an extra skill, which helps out everything, including Find Item and Natural Res. Is that it? That's pretty much all you're really going to have to worry about for this Trav farm for sure. Alright, so enough talking about it, let's actually do it. Alright, so... Oh man, we have a really nasty example here. Alright, well this is... Alright, so I was being very cautious there because they had both Fanaticism and Might Aura up. Whenever you see that, that is danger. So make sure you're not doing long whirlwinds, because if they hit you too many times before your life can recover, you can die. That being said, we have a lot of leech, so it might have been okay anyway. I was just being careful there because I've seen some things that make me wonder. But anyway, so yeah, so what you want to do is you want to kill them with your main hand, of course, and then you swap to your Alibabas for 52% item find, and then hork them for additional items. That was actually a pretty weak run overall. Wasn't a lot of gold there. Even with all that gold find. But you can easily get with different versions of the build and improved gear over 2,000 gold find. Pretty comfortably on this build, and even more magic find. Like you can put Skulders with Lemurines in it. You can use Wealth if you're not in Hardcore. Don't have to worry about PDR on your armor. I mean, you can do all kinds of things. You can get another Dwarf Star. That was a really nasty example, actually. Wow. This is a much more tame example, but normally I can leap over there, and then I can go in and out, and then reset my Mercenary, so my Mercenary is up. And then you can see sometimes he procs might, sometimes he doesn't. In this case, he did not. But he kills very fast in Players 1, and on PD2 it's Players 5 drops. So you're using the Players 5 odds from the council members, which is really insane. And you can see that I am just swimming in gold here. One of the piles is about 65k, which is what it seems to max out at right now with my current amount of gold find. And that's a little bit more typical. I usually get around like 500,000. 500,000.
Nebraska is expecting snow tomorrow. Moving to Florida. Is COVID allowing people to move still, or is that against the law?
Is it against the law? No, it's not. It's not against the law. People are being vaccinated as well. Not against the law. Baxter, thank you so much for 15 months as a member of Xana's Attack Squad, the Ghost in the Machine, the Arcane Disciples chat. Spam those eyes of Xana in the chat, and let's give him that Xana salute, Baxter. But anyway, yeah, so usually get around 500,000 gold. We'll do a couple more runs, though, just to kind of... But I use Battle Cry, and then I proc Amp on them, usually when I Whirlwind them. Then start spinning. And then swap to your Alibabas and use item. Good. And you get all kinds of gold. Okay, yeah, look at all this gold. So sometimes you get more gold than other times, but yeah, I mean, in general, it's pretty solid. Like this time I only got about 300,000. I'd say it varies between like 250 to like 750,000 depending on your RNG. So it should be averaging at about maybe 500,000 with this much gold find. You can average even higher than that though once you get more gold find, of course. But remember that you're also going for runes when you do Travincal. You're also going for charms, gems, jewels. And jewelry is actually one of the specialties of Trav. So if you're looking for skill rings like Wisp Projectors, and Stone of Jordans and BK rings. This is definitely one of your best stops as well. It's not just gold. And of course, they can also drop basic items like Storm Shields and Shakos. So Travincal is just an amazing farm in general, and this is one of the most efficient builds for doing it, period. Because you have the ability to use the item find skill, which is just so powerful when the council members drop so many items potentially per use of item find and per use of just killing them, period. So it's pretty insane stuff. Oh, that was really weak. Wow. All right, let's have like a. I mean, we had almost 500,000 one time. Let's see if we can get like a really big one. But yeah, this is one of the most efficient builds. You can definitely kill Trav faster than with a Barb for sure. But you won't have the ability to use item find on them, which in some sense, because you have to save and exit every time, it saves a lot of time just being able to use item find. It's kind of like you're killing them 1.5 times every time you kill them with the Barb. So yeah, the runs aren't quite as fast, but you're also not, you know, in the loading screen as many times. You're not walking back to it as many times. And you do want to go to Act 4 after you kill them, because it makes it quicker to walk back to Travincal. So one thing I should explain is we make a portal, and then we enter Act 4 for a reason. So Act 4 is when you spawn in Act 4, you're right next to the wort. So you're right here. So you just walk to the wort. Bam, easy, right? You're right there, and then you can go click on Travincal immediately. I bowed in Act 4 on accident, but that's okay. Alright, so, did not do that for any particular reason. So, yeah, notice how once we get Amp and Battle Cry on them, we actually have 2 sources of physical res reduction, which is, it's just shredding. Like, they are not able to survive very well. Mercenary is dying because he's not currently leeching. So that's one reason why if you want to reset the Mercenary, just go in and out of Durance there. It's usually a very effective technique. What's the best thing I've ever horked? I don't know. Burrune? Guess so, maybe. Haven't horked a Burrune yet, but I'll let you know. Yeah, overall, it's really good stuff. That time was a really good run. Like, right there, we just got a ton of gold in that run. That run was really juicy. That's what you kind of want, but, you know, it's all RNG, besides the percent gold fund. It's whether or not the monsters want to actually drop piles of gold, and it's how high the piles of gold actually roll. So, really good stuff in general, but look, we're almost at 2 million already. I want to show you guys, though, why we go to Act 4 real quick, so I'm going to save and exit in Act 3. So notice, now we got to do the Walk of Shame. So this is the Bridge of Shame, and this is the Walk of Shame. And we got to walk all across this bridge. It's not as big of a deal if you're doing it on a Paladin with Vigor Aura, or you just have some source of like Vigor or ultra fast movement in town, but man, it takes so much more time to walk all the way to the wort. Instead, if I go to Act 4, it actually saves me about 1 second overall, making that portal. Going this. So you can actually improve your run time doing that. More runs in, the better. Remember, on PD2, you can actually you can just keep saving and exiting, and you don't have to worry about realm downs like on LOD, like on Classic Battle.net. But what do you know, chat? We just found a really nice drop. That's a nice bag right there. We just found a Eschuta. Sweet. Now we just gotta make sure we get 3 skills on it, and it will actually be a really good find. So as you can see, the council just drops all kinds of stuff in addition to huge piles of gold. At the bare minimum, you get like 200,000 in a run like here, but you know, you saw that last run, you can get like 600, 700,000. So it just all depends. And what do you know? It is Geed food. Yeah, let's go. 1 skill of Eschuta. Feels bad, man. But at least you found one. Anyways, guys.
Good to see you.
Yes, Geed, you can help me dispose of this garbage in your infinite greed. Your infinite abyss of greed in your gambling bar where the item is never seen again. Alright. Anyways, chat YouTube, that is the Hardcore Whirlwind Barb Travincal Goldfind MF Farmer. Hopefully you learned something today about gear, stats, and skill points and how to actually execute the Trav farm itself. It's a very cool build on Hardcore PD2 Season 2, especially with the changes to Whirlwind. Making it to where attack speed doesn't matter how slow the base weapon is. It's still going to be just as fast and just as powerful. It's a really good idea, especially if you get really powerful weapons. And of course, with item find, the Barbarian's always been amazing at Trav farming with that skill. Having the ability to do 1.5 runs in a single run effectively using the Hork skill, as it is called. So yeah, anyway, amazing stuff. Yeah, guys, make sure to check out my other guides. Hope this guide helped you out. There's definitely other guides in the PD2 guides section of the YouTube. Of course, you can also check me out at www.twitch.tv/darkhumility. And, of course, like and subscribe if you like this video or any other videos. Definitely helps me out a ton. And, Dark Humility, over and out. I will see you guys around until the next guide. More characters, more fun. I hope you guys have fun making these kinds of guides, these builds on your own. because this one was a lot of fun.